pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here today to have our committee meetings for our Education and Culture Committee, we ask that you give us guidance to make the right decisions for our Cherokee people. And we ask that you keep your hand upon our elected officials, our tribal officials, the other officials throughout the United States. We ask that you keep your hand upon our troops that serve overseas. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Next we have roll call.
Joe Yacob.
Here.
Don Garvin.
Here.
Buell England. Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzer.
Here.
Brad Call. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk. Meredith Fraley. Janelle Fulbright. Here. Chuck Hostin Jr.
Here.
Tina Glory Jordan. Curtis Snell. Chris Soap.
Here.
David Thornton. Kara Cowan Watt. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next we have approval of the minutes of July 13th.
I move they be approved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilor Baker.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to consider a funding for a memorandum of agreement with the state of Georgia considering with our historic sites in Georgia, newest Children's Event House.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion to amend the agenda? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And you would like that under new business?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll move to reports then. And Ms. Kelly from Career Services.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Education Committee. I think my report is in your packet. The only thing I just want to report is that we had graduation over at Job Corps last Friday. Very well attended. Lieutenant Governor Jerry Askins was our speaker, and Jay was in his element last Friday. It was probably one of our better Job Corps graduations that we've had in a long time, and I think all of the staff were very pleased with the turnout, attendance, and we had a lot of parents that came around afterwards and appreciated the red carpet that we rolled out for them, so it was a good day.
Mr. Buzzer?
Yeah, Diane, there's a couple of things. Just for information purposes, I guess, is the Career Services Dislocated Workers Day program, and then also the payback between Career Services and Health program.
Okay. So glad you asked. We ordered vaults for the cards to be maintained. The vaults have not arrived yet, and we can't actually go out and start the program until we get the vaults to maintain the cards. We hope that they would arrive today, and we could start probably in the middle of the week, or at least by Thursday. And we're thinking that they will be here sometime today or tomorrow because they were ordered last week.
What is your talking? I don't understand.
Oh, the Dislocated Workers Program.
Okay.
We're going to be issuing $25 cards or $50 cards. If you work a full 8 hours, you'll get a $50 card. It's kind of like the cards that we gave out at Christmas, so that we can issue them for every day. It's like day work program. And we've got job sites inside Cherokee Nation where they'll actually be placed if they come in. The referral will either come over from Human Services or else it'll be directly through our office. And we're starting in Delaware County and Adair County. It'll start hopefully this week. And then the first part of September we will start in Sequoia County. And we will be monitoring this every week to see how it's going. We wanted to get the bugs worked out of it first before we actually put something out there, because we may find that our job sites are not adequate for these workers and we may have to look externally. Insurance is a factor if we go externally, so we're not really sure, but right now we're hoping that we'll be able to utilize our own existing facilities for those work sites.
And a follow-up question. You're not actually advertising this service just yet?
Not yet, not till we get the bugs worked out, and that's why we needed at least 2 or 3 weeks, and we can give you a report. In fact, when we meet for executive finance, I'll be glad to let you know what's happened thus far.
I think it's a good program. I think it'll work out. And then the other one's on the Career Services payback for the health plan.
We have come up with some procedures for the payback program, and we are in the process of getting it going with the fall semester, because a lot of our students are in their last part of their yearly semester, and we didn't think we could actually implement that. We need to implement it at the start of the program so that they fully understand that.
Just a follow-up question. How many of these day workers do you anticipate that you could fund?
We really don't know, Harley. We really don't know. I know that when we did some statistics with Human Services, we're looking at probably maybe 25 a month, but we're not sure. And that could fluctuate from county to county. We're hoping in October we will go global, and when I say global, that's where we've actually got staff in the field offices. We're not going to be actually able to go into McIntosh and Wagner counties and some of these other counties. We'll have to go where we actually have people, but we may have to place where we've got offices.
And one more question. And how long will a day worker be able to work in the program?
We do not want them to go past, there will be exceptions made for 12 weeks, and after that, no. But we're not going to carry anybody that long. That's entirely too long. It's defeating the whole purpose of what the program's for. It's supposed to help them to pay for a utility bill or an emergency is what it's for.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Hoskin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And did you say it's a 8-hour workday? And
It can be 4 hours or it can be 8 hours.
Okay.
The cards are set up to where we could pay someone for 4 hours a day, or they could work 8 hours a day.
are they technically treated as contract labor? Is that how they're actually classified?
More or less.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Baker?
And you said these are like credit cards?
Yeah, they're going to be like debit cards where they can go and cash them immediately. After they put their time in, they'll get one of the cards. That's why we needed the vaults. The employment training counselors will be the ones who will actually be the job coaches that will actually be placing them. And for checks and balances, the job developers will be the ones that will go to the vault, get the cards out, and give them to the employment training counselor so that you've got that checks and balance, so that it's
They
not.
can't go to the bank and get the money to
Oh,
pay
yeah.
the landlord to
Oh,
pay.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
They'll take credit card.
Yeah, that was the whole idea, so that you wouldn't have an impressed account or writing a check or anything like that. We just wanted to give them the card. And we, by the way, I will tell you, we reported this morning that the summer youth program used those cards, and we had 9 weeks of summer youth, or 8 weeks of summer youth, and those cards worked real well. And we had maybe about 5 problems, and they were in the initial beginning when they actually got the cards the first 2 weeks. And after that, we didn't have any problems whatsoever. It was real smooth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, from Education Services, the Executive Director's report, Dr. Morton, and for all components, I guess.
Thank you very much. You have received our reports. And, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have concerning those reports.
Are there any questions? Councilor Soap.
Dr. Morton, from time to time we get communications sent to us that highlights language programs, whether it be like Rosetta Stone or other types of opportunities there. What is the education department doing to pursue those or evaluate those types of programs? I guess is more or less what I want to ask. And so, what are you guys doing to evaluate those opportunities for the drive?
If it involves an opportunity for a child in a curricular setting, we transfer that to the department that it would be most appropriate for. If it's for funding for additional education, higher education in particular, then we transfer it to the higher ed department.
But that's how you're looking at it, as either primary education or higher education, let's say.
Right.
But just for, in general type terms, it's really all about funding. Is that are they soliciting funding, or, because the way it's presented is that there's opportunities out there for Indian nations or whatever to be able to
That type and,
Actually, it's soliciting funds?
yeah, and usually I go over those, and then if it's timely enough for us to submit a proposal, then transfer that to the department and urge them to pursue a proposal through Reba Crawford's shop and so forth.
All right, thank you.
But we certainly encourage those.
Councilor Bozzer?
Dr. Norman, on our Director Studies program, when you get a chance, would you mail me or mail us some of the success stories that you've gone? Have we had some that's graduated and been back to employees act, or have we got that far yet?
We have a couple, I believe, that have graduated from Director Studies, and we can give you a status report of where the others are and the various fields in which they are.
And have we added any new studies to that?
Have not added any new studies in the last quarter. Of course, we review each quarter with HR and with the department heads to determine an area of need. So far, the vast majority have been in the health field.
Exactly. It'd be interesting just to see, working together.
We'll be happy if Jennifer's making note of that.
Councilor Jordan?
Mr. Morgan, was Ms. Stanley going to come today? I had some questions about Sequoia.
She will not be here today because she's tied up with interviews.
Okay, could we have her come next month?
Yes, certainly.
And have we hired a principal for Sequoia?
No, we have not. In fact, that's the process that she's involved with this afternoon.
Okay. So we'll know maybe you're pretty quick, school
Right.
starting.
Very quickly.
Would you care?
Hopefully by tomorrow.
Would you care then to maybe email us and let us know who that individual is?
As soon as that decision is made, I'll make sure that's on.
And then possibly ask Ms. Stanley to come next month?
Yes.
My questions are piling up.
Very good.
Okay.
I'll make sure that she's here.
Thank you.
Others?
I'll give you a brief report, if you'd like, on higher ed.
Okay.
Been a extremely hectic year in higher ed. I probably don't have to tell you that. I'll bet your constituents have been expressing their interest to you. Last year we funded 2,133 applicants. In other words, we funded everyone that had a complete application by the time the deadline arrived. Remember, 2,133 last year. This year we have 2,548 who have applications in, full applications in and on time. In addition to that, we have 297 that are incomplete. In other words, lacked a portion of the verification documents by the time June 12 rolled around. So we will be implementing funding for 2,548. Would like to do a review of the 297 and see if in some instances, if universities in many instances were late this year in getting transcripts transmitted to us, if there is a reasonable reason to fund those, especially the continuing students. Chief Smith will be submitting a provision for additional budget to do that. It's been a very, very successful year. As we've mentioned earlier, it probably has a great deal to do with the economy, but that's a significant increase in students that are being aided. So we're happy to make that report to you. When we get everything all ironed out and everybody funded, we will issue an updated report that shows the number for each of your districts and also the number for those that are from at-large areas.
Councilor Hoskin?
Thank you. Is it still the case that if someone applies because of the rolling application policy, that they'd still be considered, of course, behind everyone else who's got an application in that's pending? Or is that not the case?
On a case-by-case basis,
Right.
still reviewed on a case-by-case basis.
I was trying to assist a constituent late last week, and I found that I could not access the application on the website. I had been able to a few days earlier, so I thought it might have been a glitch.
We pulled it on July 31st.
Okay, that's the difficulty I face, is we have that rolling policy, but how can the public can't access the applications though if they were...
No, they could up until July 31st.
So if I get my hands on a copy of that application, I just need to get it to the constituent to apply, or, because what I'm hearing is they could still apply.
No.
They cannot.
No, remember, June 12th was the deadline, but we said we will continue to receive applications for those, those rare instances where there is a justifiable reason for not getting the application in.
I thought
So that gives open application actually from January to July 31st.
And I thought one concern was folks who are making the decision very late, which I realize if you're making it after July 31st, it's extremely late, but that's the type of person I ran into, someone made a last-minute decision.
Now let's suppose a student let's suppose a student's employed, and the plant closes down, and they say, "Hey, goodness, I'm going to have to go back to school," and it's after July 31st. Then, if funds are available and they contact our office, then we would start to look at it, and if at all possible, we would find some kind of assistance. But as far as having the applications out, it would probably build up too much false hope.
And then, secondly, unrelated to the scholarship, the emergency funding, the $500, that it's my understanding that is actually limited to 14 counties. Is that correct? There are those counties contiguous to Cherokee Nation that are eligible for the non-Pell, as we used to call it, scholarship, and they're eligible for the Pell scholarship, I think, too, because that's anywhere in the country. Is that right? So what I'm struggling with is that's the $500 emergency fund is actually the only education funding that a person in a contiguous county would not be eligible for.
That's correct.
Okay. And I've had that come up a few times. That in fact, there was a young lady and lived just across the state line who needed to satisfy a debt so she could enroll in college, and I thought we had her lined up to apply for the emergency funding, but what escaped me and escaped her was that 14 county requirement. So I may bring forward a proposal that we expand that. But before I do that, do you have any way of, and you may not, of judging what kind of impact that might have? I mean, do you guys keep statistics on those who are not eligible by virtue of their residency, who've applied? I don't know. I don't expect that you would, but I was curious as to whether that was going to break the budget if we expanded it.
Probably, just top of my head, I don't think it would be a major impact. I really don't. I think the number of applications that we receive for emergency assistance are it's not that great. And two, it gets a little confusing for everyone. That the composition of the 14 counties differs for so many different programs. For us, for instance, for the higher ed program, it's the contiguous counties. Of course, for JOM, it's not. For other programs, it's not. So it gets confusing at times.
Is the change, if we were to change to allow those in the contiguous counties to be eligible for the emergency funding, is that something that could be done at a policy level by your office if we suggested you do it, or is that something that you think needs to be done as a matter of changing the law?
It probably could be handled administratively with, and with a report back to this body.
Thank you.
Counselor Jordan?
Dr. Morton, I understood that we had done away with the deadline requirement, that we would continue to take applications throughout the year and place them, if they had a completed application, on the end of the end of the line as far as receiving money. But as money came available, say something happens where young people did not go back from the fall semester to the spring semester, that would bring some of those up on the lower end that turned applications in late but got them completed. That might bring them up into the money column. Did I misunderstand?
We will, as long as funds are available. However, the reason for the July 31st is actually getting that processed and getting the money to the school. It's going to be beyond the deadline for payment by a student. So it would be sort of self-defeating. Now again, for the spring applications, we'll open those early so that a student will have ample time to prepare for the spring. But to have open enrollment, now a person could go ahead and fill out an application and leave it on file for the next appropriate semester. That would still be possible.
So do we have a deadline, or are we continuing to take applications?
In other words, right now we're at a, shall we say, a lull. In other words, we're saying, okay, the only way we're going to be able to process these applications is to say King's X right here, because we're not going to be able to process in time for a student to enroll for fall term.
Let me give you an example. We have a student that comes to your offices today and wants to turn in an application. It is late by our standards, but they do not desire to start school until the spring.
Yeah, they can do that.
Then you will accept their application.
Yes.
And it will go into the processing mode.
We'll put those in a pending file.
Okay. But if we have a person that comes to you today and they are going to school this fall, will we accept their application or will we turn them away?
We will not fund them. We'll not put them in line for funding. However, we do have a suspense file on students who have applied and said, hey, I can't go this fall. I want to wait until spring. So we put those into a suspense file and they will be automatically funded for spring.
Okay, so I hope what I'm hearing is that we're not going to refuse anyone's application.
No.
But it may not be funded based on its timing that it comes to you.
Right. But they can have an application on file.
And if they put it on file, let's say they go ahead and they figure out a way to go to school this fall. They turn in in my example, they're turning in their application today. We will take their application, but we will not guarantee them in any way that we will fund them for the fall.
Right.
But
Now, they would always have option for $500.
the emergency funding. Okay, so that'd be one thing that maybe we go ahead and take their application, look at it for the emergency
Then crank them in
funding.
full-time in the spring.
And then roll them over and possibly then they would be funded full-time in the spring.
Right.
So, back to my original question. Do we have a deadline now, or are we just continuing to take applications?
We have a deadline for processing just before the semester starts. In other words, no applications then. We'll start taking applications again in the fall for spring.
So we're not, if someone comes to your office, we're not saying, no, you missed the deadline, we don't want your application.
Unless it's too late to process for school to start and their payment to be received.
But we would take it anyway for the emergency funding consideration. and we would take it anyway for the spring funding consideration.
Yes.
Okay. So we're really not going to tell anyone, no, we won't take your application. We'll continue to take applications, and then it just depends on where it falls, whether we might consider them for emergency funding, consider them for the spring.
Right.
Okay.
Helen Watts?
Thank you. I pass.
Mr. Hoskins?
Thank you. So, my constituent who might actually go to school in the fall, but I understand that there would be no chance of getting funding, even assuming she had a pending application, if it was just now turned in. She would be eligible for the spring potentially, but I'm trying to assist her, so I go to the website, and I just can't access a form for her. Does that mean the only way she can get it is she needs to call your office, or is there some other way that I can get a copy, not for public consumption, that I can give to her? Because it's just easier that way.
We get you a supply of apps.
That'd be a lot easier. Okay.
In fact, that would help out.
Thank you.
Counselor Fulbright?
My question's already been answered, thank you.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, maybe go back to Kelly, but the vocational rehab scholarships, have those notifications been sent out, or?
They are taken, the vocational scholarships are taken, they're not like higher ed. They're
Right.
taken as they come in.
Right.
And yes, they are processing some right now.
Okay, what's the turnaround time on that?
Well, I'm not really sure. It will depend if they've got all their documents in, it shouldn't be but within 30 days.
Okay, so, but there's no deadlines or anything like that? It's just,
Now, because with both rehab and vocational, it depends on what kind of training program you're getting in, and if it's Rotec, it could be a 6-week program up to a year program.
thank you.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes. I just have one other question, Dr. Morton. On the 297 incomplete applications, should you all deem that we need to fund those, what kind of money do we need to get ready for in the next budget month? Do you have an idea?
On the, if we funded everyone, I think that the chief was prepared to come through with funding. It would take roughly about $335,000 if everyone who has an application on the table were funded.
And that would take care of them for fall?
Mhm.
And then in the spring, we could take that up in our new budget.
Yeah, spring would be the new budget.
This would be for the fall.
Yeah.
And you're not prepared at this point to ask for that yet?
Yes, I'm prepared to recommend that to the chief. And in fact, has already indicated that he would entertain a request to do so.
And the reason I'm posing that question to you is in order to get the funding to them for the fall semester, does it not need to be taken up on an emergency basis now?
It's Melanie, you want to address that one?
My concern is if we go another month, it'll be, this is August, it'll be September, be October, then we get into the delinquency situation again. And if you're going to ask for it, then go ahead and prove it.
We were just discussing timing. They're telling me that they would cut the checks for the pending applications as soon as the funds were made available. If they were added to tonight's agenda, they would be available then shortly thereafter. If we propose them in a budget mod, which is due to council tomorrow, then they would be available the second week of September. So that would determine at what time the checks are cut.
Melanie, are you suggesting then that we go ahead and from this body send something to tonight's meeting so that we could get that in the pipeline for you?
I don't think that would be objectionable at all if you choose to do that today.
Well, I would make a motion then, and Dr. Morton and Melanie make sure that this is the motion that we need to make, that we add $335,000 to higher ed scholarships from Melanie, Gen Fund, from the general fund, and that be moved as an emergency to tonight's council meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And I assume that would be put in the budget line, Jack? That be correct? Go
Yes.
in there.
Is Mr. Hembry, because I would have no objection to adding it to the budget mod, but in a discussion with Doug earlier, he says that we have to amend the budget mod on the floor since it did not go through finance committee.
Well, somehow,
But either
some
way,
way,
we can-
we'll get it on the agenda.
Right.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Dr. Morton? Seeing none, thank you
Thank you.
very much. That concludes reports, and next we move to old business, and we have a funding request from the Cherokee Arts and Humanities Council. As the sponsor of this request, I am going to withdraw it. Just to inform this body that we are working on an initiative, I guess, for the Arts and Humanities Councils and similar sorts of organizations to work with the Education Department to become an extension of projects that they already have ongoing out into the community. So I think we're going to probably handle this in a different and more systematic way. So we'll be withdrawing that request. Moving on to new business, and Councilor Baker, we have an item from you.
Yes. The state of Georgia has cut the budgets for two of our historic sites. They have for all their historic sites, but for New Ashota and the Van House, they cut the budget by almost 40% for this fiscal year, which means they've limited the opening of the house from the Van House and the New Ashota historic site, our former capital site, from 6 days a week to 3 days a week. Plus, they've also cut several of the employees, so there's no interpretation being done at these sites. So people go to them and visit them, but they have no guides to explain the sites to them. And in late June, Chief Smith and myself met with the governor as well as the head of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. And for approximately $80,000, these sites could be funded back to what they were before the budget cuts. And there's been discussions with the Eastern Band that they perhaps will fund half of it. So I make a motion that we fund $40,000 to restore the funding to the New Ashota Historic Site and the Van House for this fiscal year in Georgia.
Second.
And Melanie may have something further to add, and I yield to her.
All I would add, Madam Chair, is that we would, and this is at the council's recommendation, enter an MOA with State of Georgia to ensure that they restore the laid-off employees, the hours of operation, and the organization of the two sites before that preceded the budget cuts, so that we're ensured by giving them money that money goes to where we intend it to go. So we've drafted an MOA and we'll negotiate that with them as well.
And of course, if they don't agree to the MOA, then there will be no funding for them.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
And this should go to full council.
Okay, and to move this to full council tonight. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next we move to announcements. Are there any announcements? Secretary Knight?
I would just like to introduce to you Blair Huffman, if she would stand. Blair is a student at Jinx and is shadowing with us for a couple of days. She's Cherokee. In fact, if you recognize the name Huffman, she's Bob Huffman's niece. And so she's with us for a couple of days. I just want to introduce her to the council today.
Welcome. Thank you for coming to the meetings.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.